No wonder. I knew it.
What?
Okay, I'm back. 1 second. We're up and running.
Did you figure out the issue to your issue?
Yes. Yep. We are good. There we go. Okay, guys. Sorry about that. I know we're going to lose a lot of people because I had to choose YouTube or Discord, or YouTube or Twitch, and I chose YouTube. Yeah, Restream randomly just dropped on me. And so everything's good. I just switched over to just broadcasting off of YouTube. Everything's up and running and fine. It's the minute I go through Restream to try to multi-stream where it starts shitting the bed. And so maybe I have to do this going forward. But yeah, we're here now. Yep, all the way back up and running. Everything's good. So we will finish this, and then I will do some things and I'll make some edits in the future. But yeah, I might just have to stream from one specific place going forward, which is too bad. Sobi, what's going on? Welcome in. Good to see you. So yeah, so we're just going to finish this. We're going to get everything set up here. Yep, sometimes you just got to choose YouTube. Grinding Myth of Empires. I haven't heard of that. There we go. All right, let's finish this. I'm really sorry for everybody that I lost. I promise you it wasn't my PC. I promise you it was literally, I'm doing the multi-streaming through Restream, and yeah, it just looks like Restream shit the bed. I tried individually streaming YouTube from there. I tried individually streaming Twitch from there. I took that off. I just made the source YouTube and everything kicked right up. So no dropped frames anymore. Everything's perfect. I've had 0 drop frames for the 4 minutes I've been live. We're good to go. So I am really sorry, guys, but it's not my fault. I don't think this is my fault. But yeah, let's continue the video. There we go.
Right, because they're so far, they're in such different places in development time that like, you know, I don't think you can really compare them. So we'll have to see what happens.
When it comes to the actual scope of what we expect, we're a little bit left in the dark.
Yeah.
Something great that PAX Day have been doing in between their tests has been showing off screenshots of their game and the zones that they've been working on and fleshing out.
And like, again, this looks really nice.
Sure.
But So does every other game developed in Unreal 5.
And fleshing out. It's been genuinely exciting to see that, and I don't think it would be much of a spoiler to show some small teaser screenshots of work that you've made on your desert or Badlands biomes since you showed us them in 2022. What's important to recognize here is the perception of it. There's a lot of these fake cash grab projects floating around the Unreal Engine space over the last few years, and trailers like their desert biome one are extremely easy to fake and have been faked by other projects. Sure. Where's that demon that you showed us?
I do think that that's definitely true, and projects like, for example, The Day Before, I think that's the big one, right? Chronicles of Illyria, there's the Quinfall. Like, these games were effectively vaporware, and I think you're overlooking the high amount of quality potential that's going on here. I'm not overlooking it. I'm comparing it directly to other games, and I'm speaking as a, like, average consumer. Like, I'm not talking about, like, what my opinion is. I think the game is fine. It's not a big deal. But, like, what I'm saying is that I'm trying to rationalize and explain the thought process that people are going through whenever they make these decisions and whenever they think these things. Does that make sense?
Scorpion, do they even exist anymore? Was the trailer just fake? These are all questions that are raised when you show us so much of one single area and no proof that anything else in the game even exists. Are you not proud of them other biomes? It's very confusing to us, but we're a community trying to help support this game by spreading word and creating discussion. But when the discussion is mostly unanswerable questions, it becomes difficult even for me to stay interested. But as usual, I am just one nerd.
You don't need to stay interested. Just wait for the game to come out and play it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that they've said as well, is if you get burnt out on following open development, just stop following for a while. Stop following, take a break, come back. If you find yourself getting overinvested, this happens to everybody. Like, there's nobody that this does not impact. It hasn't impacted me yet. I'm not saying that it won't impact me in the future. We saw it with other content creators a year ago, where they just, you know, your perceptions, or like your expectations and the reality of where the game is at sometimes don't meet. And then you have this tug of war game that you have with yourself of, wow, this game is way behind my expectations. It's not your expectation. You shouldn't be relying on your expectations for the specific game. You should be just following along for the ride. For me, I have a very long view on when this game is coming out, and because of that, I don't personally get too high or too low for any one live stream. I don't get too high or too low based off of things that happen or don't happen, based off of feedback that is answered or that is not answered. And so that's my perspective is I'm not that invested. I'm very excited. Like, I'm more invested than most people. Obviously, I have a podcast. I do videos on this. The game isn't going to be out for a while. I'm more invested than most people, but I can't get to that point to where every single month the game is either going to be the game of the year or it's a scam. I can't get to that. And a lot of people ride that wave, and I'm not there. Narc's entire income is based on the game, and his bias is showing, to be honest. Yeah. And he's in a great, like, hats off to him, right? Hats off to him for being a content creator, a full-time content creator that makes his living off of covering Ashes of Creation. That's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, we don't need to see nonstop hype leading up to Alpha 2. Alpha 2 will be the hype. That's why you see a lot of other content creators not taking breaks, but there's just, the content's going to be coming in a couple months. It's going to be coming in less than a half a year. That's when it's all going to happen. And that's when you're going to see the floodgates break from a lot of people actually testing and trying stuff.
That's it. You don't need to be watching every little thing or getting fixated on this. Just wait for the game to come out, play the game.
Desperate for a good MMO, and I certainly hope my concerns have not spoiled any shred of remaining hype you may have had left. However, I do personally think for an open development project, it's kind of concerning how little we actually know about it, and I hope my words have at least given Intrepid some insight to the general audience's perception of the game. If you were doomed out a little bit by this video, why not come join us over at twitch.tv/Nargaverse as we sit around talking about a game that quite literally doesn't exist anyway because we're high on copium.
There it is, right? It's better to not get hyped for any games anymore. That way you don't get disappointed if it's a flop. I mean, I don't know. I think that there's like a healthy level of expectation that people have. There's the video. That was a good video. I was glad I watched that. Just let the devs cook. Yeah, exactly. Bro, he posted Ashes is popping off 2 days later. Let me see. New race reveal, new class reveal, Ashes creations popping off. Oh, this one here? Yeah, I mean, he's probably talking about like people's superior like opinions of the game, right? And like it's not even necessarily that. And also I think that's all people want to see. You know, people just want to see the updates, they want to see the new content, etc. And if you have things like this, this does relate to a lot of people, and it does a lot of people you know, they relate to this and they're like, yeah, this is something that
Okay. So, yeah, I think that's the end of it. I found myself agreeing with Asmongold mostly on this. I just think it's too early for a lot of these things. I don't fully disagree with Narc on this. I do think I think his expectations versus the reality of what's been happening are not aligned here. I think he was expecting to get more feedback, more drip information as we've gotten down. Like I haven't noticed a difference in how they've interacted with the community. If I go on Twitter right now and I respond to one of Ashes of Creation's posts, I'm probably going to get a response like I normally do. If I go into Discord and I talk to like one of the moderators there or whatever, I know they're going to respond to me. I haven't noticed any lack of that. I haven't noticed them being more cryptic. I haven't noticed any of the same things that he's talking about here. So I just disagree. I just disagree with his opinion on this. But, you know, maybe he was hoping, like, as far as content creation goes, yeah, it's a little dull right now. There's not as much stuff going on. The game's not out yet. There's nothing to talk about. And so he wants stuff to talk about. He wants stuff to talk about for videos. He wants to post things. I totally get that perspective, but it's not on Ashes of Creation to do that. They're making a video game. It's on them to make a game. It's on them to make the best game possible. It's on them to make sure everything's working correctly, not making sure that people are interested in specific things on YouTube and on Twitter and on Twitch and all these other specific things. Like that's my opinion. That's my personal opinion on this. And yeah, I'm waiting. I'm excited for Alpha 2, but I'm not fully invested in Ashes of Creation as well. Like we have to acknowledge that not every game is going to be game of the year. Not every game that we play is going to be the best game we've ever played. Not every game is going to be good. And we need to understand that. Just because the game isn't game of the year doesn't mean it can't be fun. I do think that Ashes of Creation is going to be great. I do want to give them time to let them do those things. And if I find myself getting burnt out on their development process, I'm just going to step away. If they start changing how they've been approaching things, then I'll react. But I haven't noticed anything personally. I don't know if you guys feel the same way or not, but that's where I'm at on this. But yeah, I'm going to end this here. I'm going to end this specific discussion of this video here. We have another video to discuss. Great. That's not it. Oh, I gotta, yeah. So restream shit to bed for me. Let's do this. But yeah, Asmongold had a good point of view there. Like if you're worried, play something else right now. Not all of Narc's criticisms were bad, but I didn't disagree with everything, but most of it. It's not Intrepid's job to make impatient content creators happy in an attempt to prevent clickbait, DOOMIUM, YouTube. Exactly. Yeah. I know that there's not much Ashes of Creation content right here because I know that they're going to keep things close to the vest because Alpha 2 is right around the corner. They're not going to release as much information. They're not going to release more information than they have. Like, this isn't the time for it. That's going to come Alpha 2. They're going to allow people to experience it when it happens. And so that's where I'm coming from on it. Now that that's out of the way, I see why people are talking about it. I see that perspective. Very impressed with Asmongold's overall remarks, but let's go into some fighter discussion. So I talked about this a little bit on our Voices of Vera Discord. If you guys want to check it out, I can provide a link for you guys if you guys want to come in and chat and whatever. But basically in there, we were talking about different things, and we pushed our Voices of Vera podcast back to Friday because there's no point in talking about the fighter until we actually get to see the fighter. So I'm pretty sure Nice and I will be doing a live react. This, for the first time, we will not be commenting about... we will not be watching the live stream in advance. I think we're going to watch the live stream for the podcast and react in real time. So you guys will know more than all of us, whether it's good or bad. So you guys will get our first initial reaction, just kind of changing up the cadence to see if that'll be a little bit more interesting or a little bit more fun to do. I'm really looking forward to it. This is the one I'm most looking forward to as well. This is the archetype I'm most excited about. But I wanted to, when I was talking in the Discord today, I was talking about things I was looking forward to. And things I was looking forward to was I wanted to see the improvement of melee combat. The fighter, obviously the fighter can play range as well, but they are going to be the upfront melee combatant class. And there's two big things that I want to see. The first thing is I want to see an improvement of the basic melee weapon attack update. This is one of my favorite live streams that they've ever done. But when you go in and you look at their... when this released, it released in July 1st of 2022. So they've had about a year and a half, over a year and a half, to iterate on basic melee weapon attacks. So I'm just going to go in and we're going to push play. We're going to watch some of this. But we're going to see what the combat was over a year and a half ago. And so I'm expecting this to be improved. I want to see a better version of what this is for the fighter. And so this was a year and a half ago. It's still an Unreal Engine. Like I still think this looks really good from my perspective, that this came out so long ago. But when I was watching the PvP live stream, I noticed like some of the collisions, and we can go and watch some of that as well. Some of the melee combat collisions just looked a little bit clunky, and it's fine. Like, we're pre-alpha 2. It's just something to identify and not get too worried about from my perspective. Hopefully this gets cleaned up. And with what we saw with the mage, we had the mage showcase last July, and they showed the mage last month. And I thought the combat looked so much smoother and so much cleaner for the mage. I thought they did a great job cleaning everything up. I thought it looked really good. And that leaves me optimistic that the melee combat for the fighter, because it's even further out, that it's going to look even better. And so that's what I'm hoping for. Let us pray that the fighter is still using weapon cones and doesn't require target. Yes, I agree. So this is the melee combat
in as controlled a manner as we can, and then we turn the knobs, we tweak things, we see what feels good, what doesn't feel good. We come up with some rules, some processes, and then we put them to the test. And this is what comes out.
Yeah. So that's some of the greatsword, and it was funny. Like, my vision. Like, what I remember this melee combat showcase being, what I remember it being and going back and watching it were two different things. Like, I'm not saying this is bad. Like, this is still really good. I think this still looks really fluid. But when I was watching the PvP Caravan showcase, I was like, man, melee combat looks a little clunky. And then I went back and I looked at this and I was like, wow, this looks very similar. Like, it still looks a little bit slow. Like the little animation there is a little bit slower than the sword. That one looks good. The uppercut, like, it's just everything, like, it's deliberate, but at the same time, it looks like the animation is just a little bit lacking. I don't know exactly how to put it, but it looks like it can still be cleaned up and iterated on, is my perspective. And what we saw here is a lot of what we saw during the PvP Caravan showcase. And so I'm hoping to see this cleaned up and improved. My biggest thing is the big hammer skill. Being on a greatsword, there's a simple solution to. If you're going to make skills for every weapon, make sure the skills look more vague, small gripe. Like the auto attacks and feel, though. Yeah, no, it like how it feels and how everything kind of plays looks very good, especially for pre-alpha 2. Like I know this is going to get better. So, but it already looks good in my opinion. And then we go in a little bit further. So some of the things I want to see is I want to see a cleanup of the melee skills. I want to see some more dashes. They talked about how the fighter is going to have more gap closes than everything else. We saw the ranger. We saw the ranger's effects. And in order to have an ebb and flow style combat of ranged players versus melee players, we want to make sure that players have the ability to counter other players in the game, right? You want to make sure that the fighter has the ability to gap close. And so I want to see the gap closes that they have. I want to see what they're going to provide. They said that this is going to be a unique thing for the fighter to have more than everybody else. And I don't know if it's just going to pertain to like, are you going to have dash and then like 2 or 3 gap closers, or is it going to have a shorter cooldown so you can close the distance more often? I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out, but that's something I'm going to be looking forward to, is seeing exactly how melee is going to close the distance on range. I think they shortened the whirlwind to single spin move. Yeah, I think so too. I think you're right, Galwood. Actually, you're probably right. You're almost always right. Oh yes, I need directional dashes for at least one class. Yes, and they show that later in the like this still is one of my favorite live streams. We're gonna speed up here. There's parts where they dash, and I think he had the cooldowns off for it, but they showed daggers as well. So the greatsword, that was a bunch of the greatsword combat. Gonna speed way up. I've seen this a few times, so yeah, like some of the character fidelity for this just looks better than what it has recently, which is why I do believe that it very well could be an Unreal Engine issue. But yeah, just hearing that feedback. So here's the daggers. I think the daggers also look good. But yeah, that's just the animations I think just might feel a little slow from what's being shown. Put the sound on.
And a lot of that is sold.
We'll back up just a little bit.
What the
and adding.
There you go.
Talk to me a little bit about the kind of visuals that are provided through these additional camera controls for abilities and combat.
Yeah, so I mean, the word of the day has been impact and weight, right?
I like the dagger
and
animation.
A lot
yeah,
of that
me too.
is sold through what the player sees. You know, we didn't want anything to be nauseating or over the top, and you know, certainly people can adjust it in option settings, but we wanted something.
So I have also played Throne and Liberty. In Throne and Liberty, I've been playing Greatsword and Dagger. So that's actually been my build layout when I've hopped on the game. And so it would be fun. I'm not going to do it today. I'm not going to load into Throne and Liberty right now. But showing, I do think their animations for their Dagger and their Greatsword is very good. And watching and playing with Throne and Liberty, it immediately reminded me of what Ashes looks like. Like as far as the graphics go and the feel goes, I can tell that it's actually going to be a lot of fun to play, if that makes sense. And I wish I could pull up the side by side for you guys right now, but I got to turn the VPN on. It's only available in Korea, and I might lose connection for a live stream. And I don't want to lose the connection again. Maybe we'll do that for another video in the future. Maybe I'll just pull some recording in the future and we can kind of go through it. But the feel for the weapons in Throne and Liberty are very good. Especially like there's a lot of cross comparisons. It's a tab target game. They have an action camera, and the melee combat feels deliberate. It feels very good, and that's what I'm hoping to see the same thing for in Ashes. Especially for the fighter showcase.
That would sell a lot of the weight without, you know, being too over the top and too sort of cartoonish, right? And so we implemented a few different camera effects, you know, things like camera shake, radio blur, and a few other things involved, and really tried to maximize, you know, our bang for the buck with those to sell the weight of these attacks, and it really adds a lot, especially.
I think it looks good.
I've noticed a lot of how your peripheral interprets the weight of the attack really sells it for me as a player. So that's something we've been focusing on, and it's
so yeah. So that's some of the animations. They show some dashes later on. I'm gonna try and get to that point. I don't remember exactly where it's at, but later on in the video they show a bunch of like Steven just basically dashes around and it shows like some of the movement, which movement's going to be important in a game like this. You want to make sure movement's good. You want to make sure that there was a dash right there. Was that a warrior skill with daggers? Yeah. Yep. So there's his dash. Yeah, this is a year and a half ago. And the fact that it looks like this is just so cool. There, this is where he's jumping around. And so this is what I want to see. I want to see what the gap closers are for this specific class. This is obviously the melee combat showcase, so it's not the fighter, but they said that the fighter will have gap closing abilities. And so seeing that is going to be very important. I obviously am very interested. Like, those are the two big ones for me. The other big one, if we had 3 pillars, would be momentum. I really want to see how they're going to incorporate momentum. Very excited about the idea of basically it being like a juggernaut style thing where the better you are in combat, the more you build your resistances and fighting power, and you're able to dish out more damage and take more damage. It's such a cool, unique mechanic. I'm hoping they hit that out of the park as well. Guess we'll find out about momentum tomorrow. Yeah, I would assume they would. I assume they would talk about momentum. I hope it's a big part of it. But yeah, these are the things I'm looking forward to. And so as I'm watching this live stream, going through the fighter and talking about things, these are the things that I will be personally be looking for. If you guys have any other input before I watch the video tomorrow, that'd be great on what you're looking for. But these are the 3 big ones for me: gap closing, melee combat, and gap closing, melee combat, and momentum mechanics. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Let's go to Ashes of Creation, Caravan, PvP. But if we go and look at the combat, like, not a whole lot changed if I remember correctly. So if we go into here, we got to get to a couple points where's it at? Here it is. We're watching Dread. So there's Dread's gap closer. So this is this last month's January's live stream. Where is it? Does armor type affect movement speed? I would think that it does. Actually, I think we got to go back a little bit. Sorry, guys. All right, so they're attacking from above. Fighter's supposed to have a heal cut as well. Oh, okay. What if there's any target lock gap closers? Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. So if you look at this melee combat from Dread here, Dread's on a tank. I think they said everybody's a tank. There's not a single fighter out here. So it is different, but it's also melee combat. But if you look at the differences, and so we were talking about this in Discord, and this is my perspective, I don't think the melee combat looks much different right here than it did a year and a half ago. It looks a little bit slower. It looks like some of the animations look a lot more cleaned up, like they look more in sync. But the feel of the weapons look the same to me. And maybe I'm wrong. We don't get much input here. Like, it's very little to go off of. But that was my perspective when I was watching this. Go back. Like, this is like the best point to see the Dread point of view, I guess. There's Vertec. There's DA, who we've both had on. They hop off to attack him. Yeah, there's not much to go off of here, obviously. So, yeah, I think a lot of the melee looks very similar. But I do think there's, with the differences in elevation and with it being PvP with people spacing out and everything, I think there's different systems. And I think some of that is leading to it looking the way it does. I think there's improvements, but I think this is the first PvP showcase they did, and I think they have an entire different system. I expect it to look a lot better than what this does. Yeah, a lot of the animations look very similar. Like, that, as far as speed of the animations, a lot of the speed of the animations look very similar from my perspective. And so, yeah, so those are the things I'm looking forward to for the fighter tomorrow. One of the live streams I'm most looking forward to. The worst part of tanking in MMOs is having to tab target switch over and over. I'm so excited that Ashes has weapon cones for melee. Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was New World has that as well, and it is nice. It is really, really nice. It is I can't explain how good it is. And it makes sense, right? Like you're wielding a big weapon. Sometimes when you're wielding a battle axe or a hammer, it's not a surgical tool, right? It is a whatever the fuck's in front of you is getting smashed tool. And so having it have these AoE cones makes a lot of sense. Elden Ring has that also, which is also quite nice, in my opinion. Control Alt Tank. That's a good name. That is a good name. Yeah, I wish they would deal with that specific animation, but that's okay. But yeah, like a lot of this looks fun, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Like I can't wait to get an alpha 2. In WoW, I probably press tab 15 times every dungeon pull just to distribute aggro evenly. That's brutal. Yeah, like you want combat to be fun. Like, okay, that's another thing we've talked about before. I'm going to briefly go back to that. This is what I'm talking about with some of the combat. Like, the fighter's supposed to be able to gap close. Fighter's supposed to be the gap closing one. Watch Dread here. He dodge rolls, and then look how far this gap closer goes. Look how far he goes with one gap closer. And that's the tank, right? Like, this is the tank. I'm pretty sure he's not a fighter. But he's the tank archetype. And the fighter is supposed to have multiple skills like this. So the movement, the melee movement could be really, really cool tomorrow. It could be really cool. And so these are just like little snippets that I'm gleaning into. This is where my hopium is coming from for this class, is like, okay, they're going to have a lot of these specific skills. They're going to have some of this, and they're going to have this momentum skill. Like this all looks really exciting to me. Does look fun. Pacing just needs some work. From my perspective, I agree with you. I would like to see, personally, though, the weapon animation sped up a little bit for like daggers. For daggers especially, if the greatsword is the speed that it is, it makes sense. But like the daggers from a year and a half ago, I would like them to be even faster than what they've shown. I think that makes a lot of sense. I know people didn't like the tank in the reveal, but I personally thought it looked fun and I love the aesthetic of the skills. Yeah. No, like, and that's the thing is you guys have watched my channel. A lot of you guys have watched my channel for a while. A useful tank in PvP is tough to do. Like it really is sometimes tough to do from a PvP perspective. Having a tank that can do useful things. I kind of felt like they did it pretty well. Like the tank live stream, I thought they did a pretty good job of providing a useful archetype from a PvP perspective. It's not just going to be a meat shield for PvE. It looks like it's going to have beneficial effects from a PvP or combat perspective as a whole. And that's always been the disconnect that I've seen in other games. Like being a tank in New World PvP or ESO PvP, it just doesn't have the impact that you would hope that it would. And it's one of the core values of like an MMO triad, right? Like it's supposed to be valuable in those situations, and it's just not. But from what we've seen, theirs looks better. And so that's what gets me excited about Bard. That's what gets me excited about Summoner, Fighter. Like I want to have everything. Like that, I'm that kind of guy. Like I love having like a shit ton of alts. That's who I am. But like my main one is I love being in your face melee. I'm gonna kill you. Like I'm gonna stand my ground. I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna try and fight a bunch of people. That's what I want to do, and that's why I'm excited for this. Tank stream was awkward because Steven didn't have a taunt ability and the presentation was odd, which is why they redid the video. So it'll be good to get together and look. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And that was the other thing in the video I didn't do is people were talking about how they wanted to have what's his name? Nico in Nico's video, he commented about how like they didn't go into the node for the live stream, and they didn't go in and they didn't do these things. And they didn't cover this specific thing. And his belief is like, why aren't they showing this, right? Why aren't they doing this? And the point that I was brought back to was actually the tank showcase. The tank showcase showed what happens when they go ad hoc and they just improvise things, right? When they improvise things off the cuff, they miss out on a lot of information and a lot of content that people are looking for. And that's why they don't do it anymore. That's why they do more scripted recordings, which I really appreciate. I wanted them to do that because I want the information. And yeah, you know, it's not live. It's not showcasing things live. And so people will question the development, but I think that's better than what the other option was. That's my perspective. And it was the tank showcase specifically. Like the feedback from the initial tank showcase is so bad that they had to go back and re-record it. That's how bad they kind of balked that initial showcase. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. I think we minus the little bulk we had with everything shutting down on me. I'm gonna check to see what's going on with Restream and all that, but I will be streaming tomorrow. We will be going through the fighter showcase. If you guys want to come check that out, it will be here on YouTube. I will try to do Restream again tomorrow, and if it cuts out, then I'll do YouTube only. I'll try and decide which one I want to stream from going forward. But regardless, we're gonna do this tomorrow, and then Saturday, I have a plan with Nice and Sawman. We are going to do a trio playthrough. We're doing one of the mods for Elden Ring where the bosses hit harder and they have more health and everything, and we're going to do a playthrough, and we're going to live stream that as well. So more content coming in the future. Ashes tomorrow, Elden Ring Saturday. It'll be a good time. I know people didn't like the tank in the reveal, but I personally thought it looked fun, and I love these. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to end this video here. I really appreciate you guys stopping to hang out. I'm sorry that I had issues with my stream. I'll try and fix it tomorrow, but I don't think there's anything. I don't know if there's anything I can do. I'll look into it. But anyways, thanks for hanging out. I will catch you all tomorrow. And if not, I'll catch you on a future video. Take it easy. Have a good one.